Rob, I got your, is it an email about the names of the videos there? I just remembered it today and I got those fixed. We had the planning commission meeting labeled as the council meeting and vice versa.
People would be confused.
This conference will now be recorded.
You can, as long as you have the manager thing on, the stage manager, and you have the screen, and it keeps the camera on. If you start, if you've got it, so just let us, and it should, yeah, they are. Yep.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. We'll call the September 4th DeSoto City Council meeting to order. Let's start with roll call, please.
Lane.
Here.
Hanamichael.
Here.
Daniels.
Here.
Patterson.
Here.
McMorgan.
Here.
All are present.
All right, thank you. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on our agenda tonight is a proclamation for World Hunger Month. Whereas hunger and food insecurity remain critical issues in our nation, affecting millions of individuals and families, and whereas the City of DeSoto recognizes that food security is a fundamental aspect of the health and well-being of our community, and whereas the challenges of hunger and food insecurity can impact individuals of all ages, backgrounds, and circumstances, and addressing these issues requires a collective effort from our entire community, and whereas DeSoto is proud to support and partner with our community-sponsored food bank, which provides vital assistance to those in need, ensuring that every resident has access to nutritious food, and whereas Hunger Action Month is an opportunity to raise awareness, encourage community engagement, and strengthen efforts to combat hunger in DeSoto, and now therefore I, Rick Walker, Mayor of the City of DeSoto, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2025 as Hunger Action Month in the City of DeSoto, and I urge all residents, businesses, and organizations to take action, support our community food bank, and work together to ensure that no one in DeSoto goes hungry. Thank you for bringing that proclamation forward. And you can see we have cans of food here at our place, so after the meeting, we'll seed the food, the can, so the barrel. Thank you. All right, our next item tonight is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approved the minutes from the August 21st City Council meeting, approved pay ordinance number 1004, approved contract with Royal Fence for Well 19 fencing, approved funding request for the DeSoto Fall Arts Show, approved change orders for the Sunflower Road Trail Project, approved change order for Riverfest Master Plan Project, and accept easements and right-of-way for Countryside Estates final plat. Is there any item anyone would wish to move for further discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane.
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
McMorgan.
Yes.
Mayor Walker on 1G.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item 2 is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There is a 4-minute time limit. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to public? All right, I'm not seeing any takers, so we will move on. Item 3 is old business. We don't have any, so we'll go to item 4A, consider ordinance 2663, creating a rural housing incentive district and approving a development agreement with Limestone Development Company, LLC. 2 items under this, a public hearing and the ordinance.
Yes, council, I provided a memo in the packet, sort of addressing the development overall. But if you see the blue in the photo there, that is where the RHID is proposed to, the district will comprise what's in blue there. The request is for 60% of the added increment from the new homes for the statutory 25 years. The RHID we have capped at $8.2 million, so that simply means that 60% of increment, once it hits 8.2 million, that's all the RHID that they can get. Also, there are provisions in the development agreement to claw back some of the RHID if they don't proceed as they've promised. And just as I set forth in the memo, overall, the public improvements that are required for this would be across the entire development. If you consider all of the incentives, the incentives to be received by the developer would cover about 47% of the cost for the public improvements, and 53% would be on the developer. So that's something they would have to pay out of their own pocket. But the ordinance you have before you is simply forming the district and approving the development plan and approving the RHID as well as the development agreement for the RHID part of the project. Did include in the packet Jeff White's financial analysis, so that's there. Jeff White is in the audience as well as City Bond Counsel Kevin Wimpy. With that, I'll stand for questions.
I guess, would it make sense to go, through the presentation part, since we have multiple parts and it's one development agreement, to go through the presentation for everything, and then we'll do the hearings individually, and then consider the ordinances individually?
I think that makes the most sense.
All right. I think that would help
Yeah.
me follow. Then we're not jumping to sections of the development agreement. We can.
I think Travis, developer's representative, has a presentation he wants to give.
All right,
If you're
that
okay
would
with that.
invite you to the podium to share your presentation regarding the development.
All right, I'm glad we're going this way because I kind of have it all lumped together too. There's clearly a lot of detail in these agreements, and I want to thank Patrick, Jeff, Mike, Kevin for their work on this. It's really complicated, and it's kind of intermingles the whole project together. So if I could get the next slide. I felt like it was important just to take a minute and kind of go back and say, what are we really trying to accomplish here? What does that really look like? So obviously you're familiar with the site here at K10 and Kill Creek. And then, next slide, please. This is a representative of the type of housing we look to build here. This is from a project that we have in Gardner called Prairie Trace. You can see the price points at the bottom of the screen of those homes. They're a little smaller than, the traditional Johnson County 3-car garage. And we're doing that to hit price point. We accomplished that by narrowing up the lot. We've had a lot of discussion in the zoning process about how we hit that. You'll remember that this was zoned R2, not R1, to allow us to hit that narrower lot size and a little bit lower price point. So we can get sub 4 which unfortunately in today's market is what I refer to as attainable. It is hard to get much lower than that. These get a lot of questions about these types of homes, but they are on basements. I think a lot of questions about slabs, but these ones in the picture with the pricing you're seeing is those are on basements. So we're also looking to do first-class multifamily. This is and the same project on the same site in Gardner. This particular project was a 450-unit project. We'll be looking at something smaller than that, but of similar finish level. We're really proud of this one because we use a little larger building footprint, but we put an elevator in it. And in Gardner, it's the only apartments with elevators, and we really were able to reach out to some of seniors who were looking for that type of housing, but unable to find it in their community. And so pretty proud of that. Obviously, the demographic skews a little bit younger as a whole, but being able to provide that to seniors is pretty great. And then finally, transit-focused retail. This is a busy intersection. And it's been a kind of a front door intersection for DeSoto since they built it in 1978. And the one thing I get asked when we took down this ground was like, when are we going to get a C-store here? I want to get gas here. We go to a lot of church with a lot of folks from DeSoto, and they keep getting that question. And I'm saying, we're working on it. We're working on it. Transit-focused retail specifically gives the city an opportunity to capture sales tax from people that don't live here. And I think that's a great way to find funds to invest in your city. So I want to talk also a little bit about the process and how we got here and how this project has kind of changed along the way. This was our original plan that we took to Planning Commission in 2024. And you may recall that we had a almost 3.5-hour meeting with a lot of people that were less than thrilled by this plan. And we were denied the planning at the Planning Commission for the retail and the multifamily. The single family was recommended. But we got a lot of pushback, and the projects that we're working on, this one specifically, kind of works in concert, like an ecosystem. There's revenue generation off of each element of the project to make the thing go, especially a project like this with significant site costs and a lot of off-site sanitary sewer. We went back to the drawing board and we met with the neighbors. We had a meeting at the senior center. We talked to folks on the phone. We tried to get a feel for, how we could find a balance where we could put together a project that penciled while the neighbors could support it. And so we came up with this plan. We drafted a new plan. And as you can see, we wrapped the single family around the multifamily to buffer it from the east. We added a buffer track to the east. We shrunk the multifamily down. We actually shrunk the retail down too. So this site that was the result of those meetings with the neighbors is 50 multifamily units less. We went to 102 single family units, and we lost 2 pad sites on the retail side. So it changes the calculus of what we're doing when we try to put it together. But I felt like it was important to get the neighbors on board. And I mentioned a little bit how difficult this site is to work with, and there's a reason it's been sitting quiet since this intersection was built. Next slide, please. There's an 82 feet of grade change on this site, which is really significant. And we're going to run an east-west collector, in the next slide, across this site. So we have to deal with that grade change with culverts and fill materials and try to get that to be, it's not going to be level, but it's going to be workable. Next slide, please. We're going to add some turn lanes at Kill Creek. And I think that's going to be really needed as we add a little traffic to that site. And I think not only will it help our site, but it'll be of benefit to the barn across the street when they're having weddings or events get out. There's a little more traffic there too. Let me see. Next one slide, please. This site, and you see the green dotted line here, to activate this site, we're going to have to put in about a mile of off-site sewer. And we've got a lot of easements and we've got a lot of work to do to get through there. And I think when we look at this, that's the big hurdle for this site, and it's what's been keeping it from developing for all these years. I'm gonna go, next slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more. Oh, sorry, there we go. So this is the City of DeSoto sewer plan that has been published for a while, and I drew like a red line kind of circling the area that we're gonna put in. So just to kind of show that it aligns with what was planned by the city for the sewer line. And I think it's worth noting that that light blue shading is area that could be activated through that sewer main. And while there could be some extensions off there to activate all of it, but it would be able to gravity feed that shaded blue area. And then when we leave it at the edge of K10, the gray area to the south, they can get to that and bore the highway. They wouldn't need to get any offsite easements, et cetera, to be able to continue that and activate that side on the south side of the highway. I think it's important to realize that these improvements will add benefit to the city as a whole, specifically that sewering area, but also the east-west collector will pull a little traffic off of 89th Street. There was a lot of conversation about that during the planning process. We actually ran a traffic study through a third party, and they concurred that it would reduce traffic on 89th Street by having a secondary east-west collector street between Corliss or Waverly and Kill Creek. So I think there's an obvious question here tonight and why there are two deviations from the incentive matrix after the council made some alterations to the matrix per our request nearly a year ago. Specifically the RHID request, and the second, an additional 12 years on the CID. The simplest answer is we worked with the neighbors to change our plan and find a balance that was workable. And that drastically changed our project. As I mentioned, we're 50 fewer multifamily units and 2 fewer retail pads. The cost of infrastructure has increased as we've chosen to reroute portions of the sanitary sewer to save neighbors' trees at their request. We met with neighbors, some of them in their front yards and their driveways, and kind of they showed us the important trees that were valuable to them, some big cottonwoods and et cetera. So we massaged our routing, and we added a little cost, but working with them and maintaining the character of their neighborhood was really important. By doing an RHID as opposed to an SBD as called in the matrix, people who have a sewer line coming through their yard will be able to connect to the sewer line without a massive buy-in. That's a big deal. There's multiple ways to calculate SBD connection fees, but a very common one is by square footage. So someone with 2.5 acres under the SBD concept would pay nearly $30,000 to connect. And that's just not reasonable for most people living on a 2-acre parcel to the north of us. That was one of the big concerns as we talked to people. More so than giving the easement, they were worried about the cost of connection and whether they would be forced to connect into a benefit district that was extremely expensive. And so by rerouting our plan through the RHID instead of the SBD, we make it basically that cost is zero for those folks. And I think that was a welcome thing from our neighbors. As you know, the CID is an add-on sales tax for the area of the district. And that district is going to be on our property exclusively. It doesn't generally impact city revenues. The manipulation of our plan has made this a really challenging thing for us. And I think doing so was the right thing to do for the community, but it made our development really hard to pencil. And so when we got together with Patrick, we got together with Kevin, and we talked through how we make it work and the levers we can pull, the CID seemed like the easiest lever to do so. I have another slide here. So there's my comparison of the two plans. I hadn't wanted to put that up. But next slide, please. This is a list of just a sampling of CIDs in the area. As you can see, their length's generally 22 years, and that's a statutory limit. That's really very common in this area. And so I wanted to put this in front of you to say, hey, what we're asking, it may be different from the matrix, but it's not atypical for the state of Kansas, for Johnson County, for stuff in this area. And so that's a list. There's more than that. That's just a kind of a sampling that I put together today to show, hey, this is realistic. To my knowledge, there's only one CID in DeSoto right now, and that's a property tax CID, put together with Panasonic. And I'm not a student of that deal, but I do know that there is a CID in place. Is the only one I could find, and it is in place for 20 years. So it's a similar concept to what that we're requesting for this project. So in closing, I want to thank the staff for really engaging with this project and working on a solution that strikes the balance of all the complex issues that surround this project. And I'd be glad to stand for any questions you guys have at this time or later.
Any questions for Travis?
Yeah, what was your length you were questioning on your CID?
Say that again.
What was your length?
Oh yeah, 22 years. Sorry. So the matrix says 10. We requested an additional 12, which takes it to the statutory limit for the state of Kansas at 22.
Anyone else?
I did want to note, the development agreement that is before you provides that properties connecting, the city would waive the connection fee. So just wanted to note that on the sewer. Yeah.
That was something we requested on behalf of the people in the community that were asking us about that. What will it cost us to connect to the sewer if it comes through our yard? And we wanted to be able to look them in the face and say, it won't cost you anything other than what it takes to run the pipe between your house and the line.
All right, thank you, Travis. So, Patrick, we want to run through any additional presentation material on any of the other elements from our side?
No, I
Travis
think,
covered everything in pretty good depth there.
yeah, I think pretty much covered it. I did want to comment in my memo indicated that the request was consistent with the matrix, but as has been pointed out, that in the matrix, anywhere that CID is mentioned in the matrix, it has to do with sales tax, and it indicates 10 years. So I don't know what level of thought was put into that, but I mean, Travis is correct. Most of the CIDs you see are the statutory length of 22 years. But I did want to make that correction. So
Appreciate that. So if we don't have any questions now or any other presentation, then we'll open the public hearing. We have to do individual public hearings
Yes,
for
we
each
do.
item, so
Yeah.
we'll start. I will now officially open the public hearing for ordinance 2663, which is regarding the Rural Housing Incentive District. So if anyone wishes to offer comment about the ordinance to create the Rural Housing Incentive District, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 4 minutes to make your comments. The hearing is now officially open. Right, I'm not seeing any takers, so I'll close that public hearing. The next hearing that we will have will be regarding the creation of the Community Improvement District. So this would be.
sorry, Mayor,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, if we can go ahead and take up ordinance after each public hearing, if we take up the ordinance.
Okay, sure.
I think if that would be best.
All right. So then, if any other discussion regarding this ordinance 2663 from the council, which is to create the Rural Housing Incentive District, or ready for a motion to,
Real quick, have we heard from school district or county on their stance on their HID?
No, there's been no, I mean, we have had dialogue with them throughout, early on.
But there's no indication that,
Been no indication that they would object. Of
Okay.
course, this starts the
Clock,
the
yeah,
clock.
as it were.
yeah.
Any other questions from council? Anyone inclined to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2663 for the limestone RHID.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion?
So this lock in those rates,
This will create the rural housing incentive district, so that's all this ordinance just creates that rural housing incentive district.
And improves the development agreement, but as far as the
Relative-
22 years, that's next, so
Right.
that's not on this one.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael,
yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
McMoran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so now we will consider the ordinance regarding the Community Improvement District and approving the development agreement relative to that item. That's the 22-year, 1.5% added sales tax. I will now open the public hearing. So anyone wishing to offer comment, please come forward and state your name and address. Hearing's officially open. I'm not seeing any takers, so I'm going to close the hearing. Any discussion from council regarding the Community Improvement District for 22 years on this project?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll comment on that one. You know, there was the error in the staff report that indicated that it was compliant, but it's not regarding the term. Probably y'all know that I'm pretty emphatic about compliance with the policies that we've set out. We did adopt this after we were in the process of reviewing and updating our incentive policy as this came up the first time. We identified that we needed to give more focus to the Kill Creek and K10 intersection, and both in geography as well as the level of incentive. And we did, and we got it closer to what was what the interest was at that point in time. So, you know, I feel like whatever it is, if we've adopted it, it's our rules. We've had a number of applications, be it Flint, Dustin Baker, Dave Anderson, Geiger, who have all complied with the terms of our matrix. And really, that's what we say. This is our role in economic development. This is our contribution. It's up to the developer to figure out how the rest of it works. It's not our job to make the project pencil or financially work. This is the component that the city contributes. So if we wanted to look at changing our incentive plan to adjust when we combine the TDD, the CID into one, and extend it to a statutory limit, I think that's something we take up as an adoption or an amendment to our incentive plan. But I'm not inclined to go along with just stepping over our plan that we just adopted a year ago. And so, you know, it was made intentionally. No issue with the project or anything like that. I'm just very sensitive to the policy that we've established in our incentive plan. We've got a very unique one in the way that it's tied to our comprehensive plan, our strategic plan, and to further those goals. So I think we've got something that's very unique, and if you want to change it, that's something we would take up, but I can't support 22 years over 10.
So I guess the only comment I would offer on that is that when we talked about the CID, I don't know that I really thought through whether or not 10 years was the statute. I don't know that I fully considered whether or not we were going to the statutory limit or not. I know that with the abatements, the 10 years is in our head because we know that the constitutional abatements, that's the limit. And that kind of set the ceiling. So from my perspective, I don't know that I was really mindful that 10 years on the special sales tax was that we would have set it 12 years short of the statutory limit. perhaps a lack of foresight on my part when I was talking about the matrix, but I don't know that I had that level of thought in my head when we were last talking about the incentive matrix relative to the CID or sales tax, the Transportation Improvement District. Only a comment I would offer.
Can I ask a question then on that? Is it something where, kind of like a special use permit, where in 10 years, the applicant can come back and then reapply for another 10-year, or whatever the period is that is in our plan at that point in time, or 5 years from now, or whatever, and ask for an extension, at which point we would have an understanding of whether the property actually developed, whether it was performing, what kind of uses actually came along. Since we believe that this is going to be a third-party developer, this is land that's going to be sold and be developed by somebody else. We don't know the timing. We don't know the actual uses. But can it be that after a period of time, another, you can come back and say, I want to ask for a 10-year CID that starts now, 5 years from now.
I would welcome Kevin Wimpy to the podium.
To address the,
Yeah, to address
whether
your
or not
question.
that can actually happen.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, good evening, Mayor, council members. Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell. We represent the city as your bond counsel. On the question on CID, the process to initiate or modify or amend a CID is the same under statute, and it requires submittal of a petition of the property owner, generally speaking, to commence consideration of an amendment or initiation of a CID. And so under the concept you laid out, I think we'd need to have interaction with the property owner, 10 years from now to seek that extension or modify the, hypothetical 10-year CID. I think that's the legal side. The practical side today would be, in the developer's court of, is 10 years practical? Is that limiting on the project? What does that do to, their financials is the practical financial side of what we'd be considering today, of course.
So I guess if I can ask a follow-up on that then. So it would be possible and it is allowable that could happen, say 2, 3, 5 years from now, the land transacts, there's a specific use, but now the revenue needs to flow or whatever. An application could be filed at that time to extend for whatever period of time is allowed in the incentive matrix at that point in time. It is possible then, you're saying?
It is legally possible.
It would be just like we're doing tonight.
Right. You'd be taking up a similar action to amend what would then be an existing CID.
Okay.
But follow-up question on that. If it was done by the new property owner, the CID would be to the new property owner as opposed to the person that put in the development and put in the infrastructure who was trying to recoup it in the first place, or does the CID transfer to the new owner? If and when they buy the property, if we did 22 years tonight, somebody buys the property, is the CID still going to the developer that paid for the infrastructure, or is it going to the new owner?
Yeah.
See what I'm asking?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
if we do 10 years tonight and then the new owner does it, then it may not be reimbursing who actually had the expenses necessary to get it done.
Right. So the development agreement's the vehicle to reimburse the cost to the GRADA entity in front of us. And so when property that's subject to a CID or other incentive is assigned during the operation of the project, at that time, it'd be customary to have an assignment agreement where the new entity or the buyer would come in and sign on to take on the rights, duties, obligations of the seller of the project. And a lot of times at that point, that's a negotiation between the buyer and seller of who has ongoing rights to incentive revenues.
Would that be a possibility to have that in the agreement that they had to apply for an extension, or could they pretty much go, we don't need to do that? And what we're dealing with tonight as far as the hypotheticals.
To stick with the hypothetical, yeah, I suppose a new buyer could turn down extending the CID. I think the bigger question tonight, and I don't want to look at Travis and put him on the spot, is the project even achievable with that limitation on the CID term? And I don't think we can answer that today.
So it sounds like to implement what Kevin had suggested, we would change this CID to 10 years and then a new CID would it be applied for in 10 years or at some point before the 10 years runs out? So it'd be basically two separate CIDs in essence.
I don't know that it's more just lingo, but whether you're modifying the existing one to extend it or implementing a new one, I think the effect is probably the same, yeah.
It still becomes dependent upon the new property owner fulfilling that obligation, if it's an obligation.
Right.
Yeah, and whether or not the project, the current developer of the project before us pencils out to even start the project, right? That may not, they may not have comfort to, because it's such a change in condition, may need to negotiate the other elements of the incentive package to give them confidence to start the project, right?
Although I would say it's not really our responsibility to close the gap, right? The
No.
city's not the last financial mechanism to close the gap. There's lots of other ways it can be done via land sale price, rent rate, other financing opportunities, whatever it may be. We brought our part to the table, but we don't have to be responsible for closing the gap.
Yeah.
So, Mike, on that front, how much, and Travis, you maybe have the numbers more, what difference did it make going from the sewer benefit district to the RHID as far as impact on the penciling of the numbers to where this became necessary? Because I do know and I do appreciate Travis has worked with the neighbors far more than a lot of other people would have. From the time they came to the planning commission meeting and there were a lot of people to the 2 hours and 40 minutes I spent with the neighbors, then had 2 hours with Travis and the neighbors. He has been working very diligently to address their concerns, to the times that I've had with the residents on 91st Street and knowing the conversations he's had with them and meetings he's had with them to try and reroute it to address their concerns, whether it be their trees or where it's going through their yard or their backyard or things like that. He's been very willing to do. So if, and I guess part of my question here is if we went back to the 10 years and he said, okay, I'm going to go back to do the sewer benefit district, which is in the matrix, what difference impact does that make to where could he pencil it back to the sewer benefit district, which impacts the neighbors far more negatively, and versus the RHID that's before us?
Yeah, I think I understand your question, and I don't think I can answer most of it. I would probably leave it to Travis, but I would say the benefit district, yeah, you're right, would involve the could have involved participation of the property owners along the way. But I think most of the work is the work, whether it's done, whatever mechanism is done. And aside from switching layouts to accommodate neighbors, I think that's going to happen either way. I think the big difference is the layout and the zoning and the buffering between that whole kind of change in project plan. So I'd probably turn those questions over to Travis, if you don't mind.
I'm open for Travis.
Are you willing to, ready to come speak to that, Travis?
There's a couple things. I wanted to correct something. As a developer, we're going to do pad site preparation for these sites. That is our intent. And so the word developer has a lot of different definitions, and sometimes that's vertical and sometimes that's horizontal. So I want to be really clear that our intent is to move quickly to put the infrastructure, utilities, sanitary sewers, roads, et cetera, in place to get pad sites going. And I would like to state that we've got a great deal of interest in this site, and it is our intent to move forward rather quickly on it. So a couple things. As we look at this, we can't separate them out, right? The RHID has what I would call a fuse on it, where we have to build that first phase of single family within a specific period of time. And can we go back to my just the layout? Sure. Is that possible? Just it'll help me explain. Perfect. So you can see in the yellow where that first entrance is off the collector road. So we essentially, to start that, single-family development, we have to build the collector road from Kill Creek on the left to that first entrance, which essentially puts the collector right down the middle of the retail portions. In doing that, we're going to have to raise that site up, and that it's because it's I look at it all the time, but you probably don't. It's a lot lower than Kill Creek is, so that site's got to come up. So a lot of the utility work and the site preparation work for that retail has got to start when phase one of the single family starts. Then after we start phase one of the single family, we have to continue to move through the single family at a specific pace. It's about a phase every other year. That's the at least by statement. So we start into this thing and we start going. Well, we get to 50 lots north of the collector. Now we have to keep extending the collector out. We have to get a secondary point of access. And so in theory, as soon as the RHID starts, we've lit the fuse on the retail. So we're making a commitment to the development as a whole to say, hey, we're going, right? And that's why we're running them together tonight. So when we go, we pull the sanitary sewer line all the way through the site, north to south, plus all the off-site sewer, which conveniently serves that retail site. So there's a lot of initial expense that goes in right away. And so we're evaluating that against cost, right? And the assurances that we're going to get costs back. And there's still risk involved, right? If the fuse starts on the CID, if we start the CID and it takes us a while to generate sales tax revenue, we're burning those years and they go away, right? And so having that runway is extremely important to us as we put the risk together and say, okay, we got the RHID that starts the time on everything, and it starts everything in motion. Everything starts moving. Now we've got the CID. We've got to get it moving too. It's forcing us to keep moving and keep going. And so when I look at that and I evaluate the risk, we need that runway to get there. And I understand what Mr. Hanemichael's saying, that it's not the city's place to fill the gap. But what we're trying to bring to the city is something that they want. I think it would be remiss not to contemplate some of the alternatives. Like, we're trying to hit a specific price point here with single-family homes. Yes, we can raise the lot prices potentially, but we've evaluated the market in such a manner that there's a specific absorption rate that we're calculating in based on our experience with this specific price point in an exurban community like DeSoto. We understand that single-family absorption real well because we do it in multiple cities all over Johnson County. The multifamily absorption, the same. There's a lot of risk going on right now because that multifamily site, again, as we work through the single-family, we're going to bring the road through that as well. And there's a ton of multifamily approvals, and it could potentially saturate the market. We're ready to move forward as soon as we can go. We're going to try and beat those other approved things to the market. But all those things factor in when that timeline starts. And that's why when we contemplated the RHID, the CID, we put it all together, mixed it up, and we came up with a plan that works. And starting to pull pieces of that apart will take down the project as a whole.
Thank you, Travis. Like, the other key thing is like the CID is capped, right? There's a dollar cap on this as well. That if it's successful, if the retail is successful, the sales tax generation comes, it's not, hopefully would be then less than the full term, right? Because it's going to hit the 3.2 million and that will expire before the deadline of time. But
I think the only two other comments I would have is one, kind of lining up with Mayor, in that when we had the discussion about the CID, it was less about the term length and statutory capability length of a CID and more of the transportation tax, the commercial tax, whether it was going to be 1% on each of them or 1.5% combined. It was more discussion about the percentage and about whether it was combined with the other type of sales tax district that was available and less the statutory limit, which
brings me to my second point is, we do have the matrix, we do follow the matrix, but our incentive policy very clearly outlines multiple times that we do have the discretion and capability to work within that and work within the statutory limits that are provided by the state as well. So it's not completely unreasonable to look at a project that's taking multiple pieces and putting them together and have them align with the statutory side of things.
Another question on, kind of on the flow of this and the process of this is, ordinarily when we get a incentive request, we vet it out at our finance committee or incentive committee, that kind of thing. Then it comes to council for a first reading, if you will, and then we act on it the next time. I don't recall this coming to our committee. So I'm not sure if the intent here was that we're considering the 2024 application as the first review of this, but I think we would have caught this had we discussed this at a committee meeting, unless there was one I missed or
No.
something to that effect. So I feel like there was a gap in the process here as well.
Yeah, well, there's certainly, this has been a year now, right? I mean, this has taken quite a bit longer, and
it's
I think
changed.
for all the reasons
it's
we've
changed
heard.
considerably.
Yeah,
in the
for all the reasons we've
content.
heard. And I don't think that after it changed, we came back and said, okay, this is a new process now, start over. We didn't do that. So you didn't hear the applicant come before you again here with the initial we only had that one initial presentation.
Right, and at that point, RHID wasn't even an alternative.
Well, RHID still isn't in our policy.
Right.
It's still,
Right,
that's on our to-do list.
Right, we're doing those
Yeah.
case by case, but I think
Yeah.
even at that time, I don't even think we had adopted
Oh, no, that's right.
RHID as an alternative.
that's
where
right.
We adopted
We
that,
didn't
and then
even-
we started doing
I
it.
didn't even know if it was
location by
available to us then.
location. So
Yeah.
this is substantially different
Yeah.
than the first
Well,
one.
I mean, that's.
And I think, and again,
it's-
I think we would have caught it. The staff report's in error. I think we would have caught it if
Okay.
we would have had that discussion. So to the extent that if getting it started kind of lights the fuse and sort of like, if somebody goes and builds a structure on a 10-year special use permit, there's a huge risk that they may not get another special use permit. But that's kind of the way it flows. I think if we saw that this thing got traction, the finances are working out the way they would, that probably a governing body in, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now would go, yeah, let's do a 5-year extension or whatever is needed to see this thing out. But, that's another hypothetical.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would, I think that that's a viable option and stays within our plan.
So I think from my perspective, and this is relative to the matrix, I guess, I would say if we had a policy that allowed CIDs and TIDs, that we would have them to the statutory limit. I don't know that I would have, I think, assumed that if we were saying these are acceptable here, then they are acceptable per the, statutes of the state of Kansas, that we wouldn't have made a more restrictive condition. I wouldn't have, I don't think. I mean, because it was the concept of this is an incentive we want to use in DeSoto, not a separate discussion that, we want to use it, but we don't want special taxes longer than 10 years, right? So I don't think we had that discussion either. So I think I do appreciate that we need to look for these inconsistencies in our incentive matrix where the policies that we're setting, we need to make sure that we all understand the full ramifications of those policies, because I know every time we come up with a new project, we're pushing another part of it that touches something that hasn't been fully vetted yet. So I do believe that we need to relook at that, and I would be supporting to extend the CID to, if we're going to do it, then I don't know why it would make sense that we would want to limit ourselves in our matrix to something less than what we could do, and that it would be our choice as we considered a project whether or not we would go 10 years or we would go 22. It would be a discussion relative to a specific project, not a general condition for all projects. I think to be fair to this project, that having spent the time negotiating the agreement with the thought that a 22-year CID was going to be possible based on, discussions and direction and interactions with staff, that if we're going to look at something other than that, that we would want to table this and provide them an opportunity to look at their finances, and maybe they need to present a different package of incentives for approval. I don't think it would be fair to try and limit them to a 10-year on, a short discussion through the meeting tonight, that there would be more time needed to adequately vet that on their side and consider it, so.
Well, and I would tend to agree with you. I think, if we should change the policy, I think the whole body needs to discuss that and the ramifications, because that's also going to be an effect on our citizens. A lot of people will go to that retail and pay a 1.5% higher sales tax there. So I think that needs to be discussed with the whole body. I think whether you table this one particular part of the whole package or approve a 10-year and then have the discussion, which would make more sense. Hold this part out for a month or whatever so we can talk about the other part and then act on it, or go ahead and get 10 years. At least there's something that's known to the developer at that point. Then we can change it, and then they can come back and say, well, let's amend it to go up to the 22 years that's been approved. But I would agree with you in terms of either table it, or my opinion is going to be to only be agreeable to a 10-year that fits in our plan tonight.
Right.
I have a question,
Sure.
kind of new to this, but, so that was indicated that Panasonic had the CID that goes up to 20 years? Was the 10-year limit at that time? So was there a 10-year limit and Panasonic got the 20, if I'm
Yeah.
asking
Well-
that correctly?
Yeah, that's true. At the time, we did that. There was this 10-year limit in the matrix there. It's important to understand, though, the reason we did the CID for Panasonic is solely so that Panasonic can pay the fire district $800,000 a year for the fire service while the other incentives are in place. And so that district had to go out 20 years so that they could pay for 20 years until the time that the TIF incentive rolled off. So kind of was apples and oranges.
And that's a property tax. That's not a sales tax. So you can do CID with different kinds of
Correct, yeah.
tax mechanisms.
So it really is
So it was
we
more,
essentially don't have it.
Okay.
it was more consistent with the TIF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the matrix, any place there was reference to community improvement district, it referenced sales tax. So it was sort of, and I think it's pretty obvious, but I think it's also worth pointing out that, this added sales tax only applies on the property that Travis is developing. So to be honest, as far as, we went back and forth on many things on this development, but as far as the sales tax, it's something his customers can decide to pay or not pay. It's not, and so, I guess in the grand scheme of things, didn't view it as, if it's too much, that's on Travis and his development, that, those retailers probably aren't gonna do well if people decide, that's just too much sales tax. It's not, other than like the tax abatement or even the RHID, this is simply something that Travis's customers will pay or not pay.
Tax foregone by the citizens of the city. It's a tax paid by those that choose to shop in that district.
So people getting off K-10 between Lawrence and Kansas City are paying it, the residents would be paying it. It's on anybody that's using it, not just our residents. And I'm actually fine with the 22 years. That's a statutory limit of Kansas. The matrix is there. It is our guide. But again, the incentive policy multiple times and the actual policy and the ordinances of our policy give us that discretion to be able to modify it if we need to. And if we need to take up and actually have a discussion of, do we modify our matrix in the future based upon this discussion of it? The mayor, myself, and others going, well, we didn't realize the statutory limit was, and we don't necessarily want to limit ourselves to that. to modify the matrix, because we need to go back and look at the matrix anyway, because we don't have our HID in there. So this would be one thing that would be into that discussion at that point. But I'm fine moving forward with this, as it's been negotiated through the city and with Travis, and it's not a tax totally on our residents, that I'm fine actually moving forward.
I would feel more comfortable with 10, not 22, and tonight. To let the thing go ahead and go and get the project started. That's the way I feel.
Well, Mayor, maybe I'll go down your path then and make a motion to table ordinance 2664 until we've had a chance to readdress the incentive matrix.
Does anyone wish to second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table ordinance 2664 until we have time to address the incentive matrix. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane.
No.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Okay. Can we have clarification?
Yeah.
Danny, were you saying no to table or yes to table?
Yes to table.
Okay.
Okay, so I will change that to yes.
Thanks for that. I was,
Thank you.
I thought,
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
catch, Rob. Thank you.
there was, yeah.
Okay, so
Thanks for the clarification on that, Rob.
Okay, so can we restart that just so okay. All right. Lane.
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Daniels.
no.
Patterson.
No.
McMoran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Our next item is the public hearing and the resolution on declaring the city's intent to issue industrial revenue bonds and grant a property tax abatement for the Limestone Hotel project. Consider resolution 2074.
Yes, council, this resolution would give the city's intent to grant a tax abatement and also approve a pilot agreement. The pilot agreement, as you recall, that's what sets the level of abatement. The proposed level is 75% for a 10-year period.
Okay. With that, I will now officially open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to offer comment, please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Zach Bradley, 8341 Laramie Street. I just wanted to say that for this particular hotel project, I think it's a good idea because right now we have one option, right, in the city for lodging. There's nothing wrong with the hotel we have, but it's not a middle or higher tier hotel. And I think having an option that gives us a little, maybe a higher price point, but a higher quality hotel is good for our city to attract people. And so I don't think it would hurt us to have another hotel option here. And so I just wanted to voice my opinion on that and say, thank you for considering that and I hope you'll approve that portion.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad, Zach. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Resolution 2074, any comments or questions from council regarding this item?
I do have one question. This would be more for the developer. Being that this was kind of a package of needing all pieces together, would they be preferring for us to table all of this to come back or to proceed piece by piece?
Good question. Travis, any thoughts on that?
I guess my thought would be to go ahead and approve it. We can't proceed without the CID functioning, so we'll have to look at how we deal with that and how we deal with delays. Because we have the RHID approved, but we do not have the CID approved. And I think we need to move rather quickly to figure something out. But I think, you know, they don't go in place until we get going. So I think, you know, I am concerned of the messages that is getting sent to the general public right now that we're not interested in retail in DeSoto. I don't think that's true, but, you know, as we table this stuff, that message can get sent. So by approving the rest of it, I think it sends a good message that, hey, we're moving forward. We're got to figure a couple more little pieces out, and we'll get this figured out pretty quickly. So I would encourage you to go ahead and approve them.
Thank you for that.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2074 as presented tonight.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
McMorrin,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Our next item is consider Resolution 2075, declaring the city's intent to issue industrial revenue bonds and grant a property tax abatement for the multifamily project. Again, the first item is the public hearing. I will now officially open the public hearing. If you wish to offer comment, please come to the mic and state your name and address. I'm not seeing any takers. I'm going to close the public hearing. And now we will take up Resolution 2075. Any discussion from council on this item?
Similarly, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2075 as presented tonight.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
McMorrin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. So we will have on our next agenda a discussion of the incentive matrix, at least relative to, maybe we can cover RHID and CID limit.
Easy enough to adjust the matrix, sure. And, you know, we've kind of, first one of these policy, we kind of implemented the initial format of a policy we have now in 2019. Seems like about every year we've updated it. We usually look at the map, which we probably should do, but for expediency, we'll just stick with the matrix for this, for next meeting.
I think to be fair, in 2019, when we were looking at this matrix,
A little different.
it was a much different landscape. We didn't have a whole lot going on, so.
I do have one procedural question. Being that we've had the public hearing on it, if we come back after either a different agreement with him on the CID as far as percentages and/or we've updated the matrix to comply with it, do we need another public hearing or can it simply come back?
Yeah, Patrick, I think.
Yeah, I'd let Kevin address that. But while Kevin's coming up, I wondered, I mean, Travis, consistent with what Councilmember Hanamichael, I wonder would you consider, you know, some type of resolution by the council that they would favorably consider a renewal, you know, after you get 10 years tonight with the intent of the council that, you know, in 10 years or somewhere along the way that, you know, an additional term on that would be favorably considered. Something, I mean, I feel like that might be a way to, you know, be able to get this done, but at the same time respect the policy issue that Councilmember Hanamichael raised.
Can I ask questions?
Sure.
Would there be some sort of like automatic trigger provision, like say we get a certain, you know, right now the CID at 10,000 square feet, that we don't receive any reimbursements until we reach 10,000 square feet of retail. What if there was a trigger provision when we hit another threshold that it went from 10 to 22? Because I think that would accomplish, I believe, and I'll look at Mr. Hanamichael here and say, you know, I think what he's concerned about is we put a CID down and we don't get any action. Like, we don't get stuff moving. And I'm not particularly worried about that because we've had a great deal of interest in this site. So, but how those buildings take place, what their sizes are, et cetera, there's still a lot of questions to be answered there. So an automatic triggering provision might be something that I think we would be interested in because A, we're confident in the site, and B, like, if we're not getting it done, we get it. Like, we'll sign up for that.
I think, sorry, Kevin, I interrupt, but I think to do what you're suggesting, we would need to do it for 22 years. What I think Mr. Hanemichael is suggesting, do it for 10 years, and then outside of that, or maybe in the development agreement, we indicate that, at some point, city council will favorably consider, another CID for the remaining 12 years, something along those lines. I mean,
Because even if in the next 6 weeks, we have, a couple of council meetings from now, we adopt an update, I mean, then it could be modified at that point in time too. Wouldn't you have to wait? But at least could walk out of the meeting feeling like you've got 10 years. Now, my question, you said can you ask questions? The answer is absolutely yes. I'll ask a question too. Would a provision that says something about would be favorably viewed, is that binding a future council?
no.
Okay.
It wouldn't be.
Because that would be,
Right, it would, yes, it's just like the tax abate, as we do, for example, with Intervet, we still do a public hearing. I think, as you mentioned, we could do it in a few weeks. We have to do another public hearing, which I think it's quite a on the public hearing to get the notice and.
Do we have to, that's the first question. Do we have
that
to
was
do
that was
it?
Rob's,
I
that's,
was
it
gonna
was
say,
the genesis of the
If
question.
it was an
We
amendment
take it
to it,
up.
do we, I mean, yeah.
No,
Our next
so
meeting.
you've gone through the procedure of notice, public hearing for the consideration of a CID sales tax, 1.5% for 22 years. To take that up again, you wouldn't need to repeat that. So you've opened and closed the public hearing, and you could consider the ordinance at a future council meeting.
So we could do 10 years tonight. If we update our policy in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks from now, we could take it up and amend it to be the 22 years.
What,
without-
I want to
without
answer
public hearing.
precisely. You could do 22 years tonight. Your policy doesn't bind you. It's obviously a guidepost, but not legally binding. Yeah, I think you could approve a CID for a lesser term tonight, and then later consider extending that procedurally. Again, I think the more practical question is about whether that
Now
works.
that we've tabled it, when we take it back up, do we have to open up another public hearing?
Right,
at all?
yeah.
I mean-
Isn't that your question?
Whether we take it up again after tabling it, or whether we did 10 tonight
Yeah,
and
and
came
then
back
did something
22, under
Either way.
either scenario, would
If
we
we
have to have
did
a
10
public
tonight,
hearing?
I would believe we would be starting over with a new ordinance. So we would have a hearing and the whole process to repeat. I mean, we would have completed the one process, right? I mean, and it would be a new ordinance that would be extending the next 10 years would be.
So to play out the hypothetical, I think if you would approve 10 years tonight, I think it would be likely you could adopt an amending ordinance without repeating the procedure, because you've already taken up the procedure. But I'd want to take a harder look at that. I'm not sure I've encountered that question before. There's a chance you might have to repeat from the beginning.
And the question comes, is it just easier to take up the matrix and then take
I
it,
think
which
we
is probably the
tackle the
easy, which
matrix
is the
and then
easier.
and then see where we are, and then we can solve it all at the next meeting.
Or
I think
two
we can get there.
Meeting or two.
Or two, right. All right,
So,
go ahead.
sorry, Kevin, just a clarification. So what you're saying is it'd be fine to table the ordinance, which approves the development agreement and essentially the 22-year CID, table that, and then let's say in 2 weeks, take that ordinance back up and do the exact same thing, 22 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all we're really asking is, do we need to open a public hearing again if we come off of having it tabled? That's all we're asking.
At this point.
Answer's
I
no.
mean, we had
Answer's
a couple,
no.
we had a couple scenarios.
Yeah,
but
couple-
that- but
couple
that's the one
variants.
we're down to now.
I'd like to speak.
Sure.
One of the things the CID ordinance does is it deals with some of the easement provisions that we need to get moving on easement acquisition for that sanitary sewer. So that's the next logical step in our project, right? We've got to get the easements acquired. And, you know, we've obviously had a lot of conversations with the neighbors and they're going, well, what you know, can I see the easement? Can we do? It's like, just, we'll get there. We got to get through specifically this process. And I told them tonight was the night, you know, weeks ago. If we have an understanding that, like, we don't want to start putting sewer in the ground until we have a better grasp on the financial viability of a project, which we're looking at, you know, when we've done our math, we're basing it on a 22-year CID. And if that's a possibility going forward, I think we move forward in good faith. And if we pass the 10-year tonight and don't have to reopen a public hearing, that would be preferable to us only because we can get started on easement acquisition. I don't know if that changes things. But we would be back trying to amend that to the 22 or another sort of provision to try and get that thing to square back up.
Okay.
Sorry.
We're kind of going around and around on
We
this.
are,
I would be
we are.
agreeable to a 10-year, but Mayor, how do you want to handle the process now?
So then I guess the question, if we do have to do a hearing, we approve the 10-year tonight and we have to do another hearing process to amend that, what's the gap required between, is there an issue timing-wise? Does it put us out?
I think it's,
It doesn't, it's not, but at that point, you've got something to start with for 10
Right,
years.
Right, I
So-
think we don't have
so
the
it could
time
be a
crunch.
year,
It could be
and it's
6
not an
months or a
issue.
year, right.
So that's, you know, that would seem to me to be the best way to get the thing off the ground, is, you know, you've got 10 years of runway out in front of you, and all we need is, you know, 2 or 3 months even.
Okay,
We would probably not want to wait a year. We would, my thought process is easement acquisition is
right.
going to be
Critical path, right?
it's a critical path, and we're going to deal with that probably for the next 3 months, easement acquisition. So 3 months, yes. A year, meh. We'd probably like to put it, you know, get it handled sooner rather than later, so.
Thank you for that. So I guess with that in mind, any thought on a motion on an amended?
Is it as simple as the only amendment is the duration from 22 to 10 years, or is there other language tied around that, or is there other calculations or tabulations, or is it just simply?
we'd need to amend
What?
ordinance, it's 2664.
Right.
Can you, out of 165 pages, can you?
Me too.
Okay, we're all trying to,
I'd say we just approve ordinance 2664 with the understanding that the CID is to be capped at 10 years and to authorize our legal staff to make the necessary modifications to the agreement to make that so.
That'll work.
okay, well, since I started this, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2664, approving the CID, modifying the duration from 22 years to 10 years, and incorporating that through the ordinance as appropriate.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
motion carries.
We made it. That was it. All right. Item E, I've been trying to get to item E for about a half hour. Thank you, Travis, Kevin, Jeff, for your participation tonight. Item E, consider agreement with McEnany Construction for the 2025 Mill and Overlay Program.
Mayor, Council, thank you. So we took bids on August 21st. We received 4 bids, high of a little over 589,000, and then a low bid of 521,603. The bids were really good. Engineer's estimate was a little over 900. My estimate was a little less than that. So we got some really good bids. Looking at bid prices last year, asphalt prices came down substantially, which helped us. This year we have $1 million budget in the overlay program. We're using, in the right, we're using about 129,000 to partner with Evergy to overlay about 3,000 feet of 95th Street between Lexington and Sunflower. City crews have already overlaid the other half of that. And so there's about 250, 300,000 available funding to add some additional streets. We're working with that to identify those streets and then get with McEnany to get prices for those. Once we do that, we would come back in with a
Are you
change
just
order.
taking random suggestions? 89th Street would.
Well, that is one of them. So we're looking at to be completely done with
Point
that
of
area
order.
out there. So that is one of the streets. So yeah, so the recommendation tonight is to approve the contract with McEnany in the amount of $521,683,000.
Any questions for Joe on the mill and overlay, or the overlay, the street maintenance contract? Let's just call it that. Overlay program, no mill.
I'll make a motion, we approve the bid and contract with McEnany Construction in the amount of $521,683 and authorize the city administrator.
And I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
McMahon,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Item F, consider agreement with Kansas Heavy Construction for the Waverly Road Trail Project.
Yeah, thank you again. So yeah, we took bids. We've received 9 bids for this project. So this is Waverly from 95th south to the city limits, running along the west side of Waverly. We got really good bids. We had a high bid of $467,000 and change, and a low bid of $269,440.90 from Kansas Heavy Construction. They're a good contractor. I think we had looked at amending the budget to about $400,000. That was kind of what the engineer's estimate was going to be. So we have currently $250,000 in there, so easy enough to be able to cover that. We'll work on, we've got contract documents, so we'll issue notice to proceed for this project tomorrow, so they can get started and complete before year end. So it'd be the recommendation to approve the low bid with Kansas Heavy Construction in the amount of $269,440.90. And actually the contract documents the mayor will sign.
I got it. Questions from council? Motion.
I will make a motion to approve the bid and contract with Kansas Heavy Construction in the amount of $269,440.90 for the construction of the Waverly Trail and to authorize the city administrator to execute the contract.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
McMahon,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right.
Keep bidding stuff. Man,
Right.
bidding environment seems to be good right now, huh?
Item G, consider water rights agreement with Sunflower Redevelopment LLC.
Yes, council, we've discussed water rights, easements, wells for quite some time. The agreement that you have before you formalizes those assets being transferred to the city. The agreement does provide that the city will reserve capacity for sunflower redevelopment and their projects at Astra of 3.5 MGD. So that will, as they bring projects in, that amount will be depleted by water that's needed for those projects. The agreement does exclude the Panasonic plant, not the option property, but the Panasonic facility itself, since we already planned for that. Bob Johnson with Pulsinelli's here, that staff recommends approval of the agreement.
Okay. Questions from staff or council?
Did that include the water lines and stuff up to the plant, or are those excluded still?
Well, I'll let Mike speak to, they are reserving an easement, an exclusive easement over the 54
Yeah,
inch
so
line.
there's a 54-inch diameter raw water line that took water from the surface of the Kansas River to the surface water plant. Sunflower's reserving ownership of that and an easement for that. There's also an 18-inch sanitary sewer line that runs from the Astor Enterprise Park down to the Kansas River. They're also reserving that for themselves as well. We're getting the two 16-inch raw water mains that we've been operating since 2000, or before, since 98 probably, and all 12 well locations, along with the rest of water right 38. So in terms of value of assets, it's really that water right that well, and the raw water mains are a significant value of asset. Patrick did a good job in the memo of articulating succinctly this 25-year saga of the water rights situation and our you know, the relationship with SRL there, and ultimately coming to fruition the request that was granted by the United States government for transfer of the water treatment plant itself. So we've been working on that since 1998, and this really kind of puts a bow on the last pieces of that. It incorporates the pre-development agreement provisions of that. So really kind of puts finality to all that effort over the years. So I know that wasn't really your question, Rob, but yeah, so the assets, essentially the two 16-inch raw water mains, the easement that is the utility corridor, the Sunflower Road corridor, all 12 wells, the lines that go to the 12 wells, the water rights associated with the 12 wells, and the easements themselves down the water. In addition, we're getting a transfer of ownership of the water tower site property and additional property that we need around the water treatment facility to facilitate essentially the improvements that we're nearing completion now. So water treatment plant site's getting bigger, and we're getting the water tower site as well. So.
And Mike, is it on the 54-inch raw water line and the sewer? If I'm remembering correct, that was always considered.
Yeah.
Throughout all, we've always said
never had any claim
we
to
were
those. Yeah.
going to let them keep those.
Yeah,
so.
we've never. That goes back to the initial claim with
Yeah.
the Department of the Interior for the water plant. We never claimed that, or the surface water treatment plant. So it's not something
They
we've ever.
weren't pertinent to the operation of the water treatment
Right.
plant that we were taking
Yeah.
ownership of. Well, I'd just like to congratulate everybody on their endurance, persistence.
Two good words.
I know. Was anybody who was here in 1998? Patrick, were you?
No, I was here 2000.
So you
Gerald
did-
Cooper was.
Who made the 1998 application? That person is not.
Steve Pruden, was
Yeah.
mayor then.
All right.
Yeah.
Mike
Bob, were you
Howe.
working on it in 1998?
I sure was.
He was in grade school.
No, it's a great milestone. Hey, nice. It's happy that we are finally to this point, and if there aren't any questions, entertain a motion to approve the agreement.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement for the water rights agreement with SRL.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
McMorran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
Bob, we didn't intentionally put that at the very beginning. Promise.
Mike, it's all you. Budget presentation, item H.
Yes, council, it is all me. So, as we said with previous, and I think probably since the middle of the summer, our budget calendar has targeted September as having a final form of the budget to present and work through, and then the actual public hearing date is set for our next council meeting, which would be the 19th. And that'll give us time to notify both counties what our budget will be for 2026 in time for the deadline of October 1st. So, you know, we've had background discussions on a lot of it. In the packet, what I've provided is pretty much the full version of our budget booklet, several hundred pages, talking about policy directives, showing the 5-year projections, talking about individual expenditures, showing each line item for each departmental budget. And of course, we generally separate the property tax funded funds, so that's general, debt service, and law. Those kind of are set separate from our revenue supported funds, which are the water, sewer, and the refuse. And then we also separate everything else, which involves all the smaller kind of single-use funds that we have for you know, for various reasons. The biggest among those being the capital improvement fund. We've really had those discussions about all of these, and so I wasn't going to do a page turner on the. Don't worry, I did produce a little PowerPoint presentation here that hits the highlights, just reminders maybe, and kind of for the purposes of the public if they're watching online.
Brandon,
or
start the timer when Mike starts.
Start a 4-minute timer. Yes, Mayor. I'll keep it quick. I do think it's worth hitting some highlights because, you know, in a lot of ways, this budget, you know, our budget process the last 2 or 3 years has been pretty tricky with what's going on in the economic development with Panasonic and now the data center project and other things that are happening. And but this, much like the past two, you know, we're faced with water and sewer treatment plants that are almost about to come online. You know, the water plant has and the sewer plant will in 2026, so there's some unknowns about that. We're going to be seeing increased water and sewer service demands, mostly from Panasonic, but that's going to kind of change the nature of those two budgets. Then also we're dealing with property tax, franchise fee revenues, and other kind of revenue streams that could look pretty rosy if we allow them, but we're still, those are things that are yet to come. And so we're still remaining pretty conservative on a lot of those projections. So we're kind of left in this sort of middle zone where we know there's a lot of stuff to prepare for, and when services are going to, the need for services are going to increase and resources are going to increase. So we want to be set up well within 2026 to address all those needs and hit the ground running with some of these bigger projects as the revenue streams come forward. So in terms of budget highlights, so you'll remember for the 25 budget, we were able to reduce the city mill levy by about 1/3. That was a big jump. Can't do that again this year. But we are reducing it by 0.83 mils, which is about a little over 6%. And you'll remember with the revenue neutral rate calculations, it includes the increased assessed valuation from Panasonic. It includes that revenue that we're gonna take from them, although it gets diverted to the TIF fund and can't be used for general purposes. So our R&R rate is really artificially low this year, somewhere around 6.5 mils. We're not going to be able to do that. But what we did do is we took a look at the averaged increase in assessed valuation for the average residential property in DeSoto, and we saw that went up about a little over 6%. So we took the mill levy down by that same percentage to come up with our own R&R, the DeSoto specific R&R rate. Essentially, the concept being that the average homeowner, citizen in DeSoto won't see an increase in actual dollars from their tax bill from the city next year. So the mill levy therefore goes from a total of 13.77 last year, or this year, down to 12.94. So that's the story on the mill rate. Franchise fee revenue projections have been adjusted downwards slightly to reflect a slightly more conservative approach, mostly based on the schedule of completion of the Panasonic facility and the commissioning of production lines at that facility. It's delayed a little bit from what we'd expected this time last year, so we've taken the franchise revenues and taken them down a little bit. Sales tax collections continue to be strong. We continue to project those conservatively. I'll have a little bit more on that in the next slide or two. We'll be able to, again, in '26, transfer a significant general fund from revenue from the general fund to the capital improvement fund. There's $1 million transfer in the budget for next year. That's on the heels of a $2 million transfer this year. So we'll be able to program improvements with that. Maintaining an annual road maintenance program of $1 million. Joe just talked about $1 million we got this year. Same for next year. This budget includes additional support for the Chamber and EDC, an additional $100,000 for 2026. There are 7 new staff positions in this budget. In the general fund, there's city clerk, custodian, plans examiner, community events coordinator. There's 2 water plant operators and a sewer plant operator. And that, again, is in anticipation of the higher service demand. As far as the CIP goes, we know that I at least had a goal of getting through the complete CIP overhaul in time to incorporate it completely into this budget. That's not happening. We still have some work to do there with determining, establishing projects. We've got community surveys going out. There's still work to do there. So, but we do have a placeholder in the CIP budget. I'll show you here in just a minute. But in total, for this '26 budget, there's $27.5 million in capital improvements. 17 million of that are what would be wrapping up the Panasonic funded project. So we still expect to have some money we have to pay to finish up the water plant, finish up the sewer plant, finish up the water tower, those projects. So about 17 million there. This year, with Brandon's help, we incorporated this idea of specifically identifying budget enhancements. We're calling them, these are new programs or new positions that we didn't have in the previous year. The enhancement includes the new FTE, the 7 new FTE positions, and several other things. So it's about $417,000 in those budget enhancement that'll impact the general fund. And the last bullet point, we talked about the water and sewer budget inclusive of increased demands and commissioning the new treatment plants. The assessed valuation picture is a little strange. We see from 2017 on up through 24-25, steady increase in assessed valuations. This hits everybody's notice on their individual property, but then you see in 2026 this wacky bar that's 6 way up there. Well, that's all Panasonic. About 204 million of that yellow bar is of total assessed valuation is Panasonic. So what we've done in our budgeting, we know we're going to collect that revenue, but we know it just gets dumped over into the TIF fund and will eventually be repaid. Eventually, it will be repaid to Panasonic to reimburse them for capital expenditures. So it's part of that TIF. So the effective the effective assessed valuation is about 148 million. So that's down from 174 that we looked at last year. But last year was a little of an anomaly because it also included a portion of the Panasonic. And remember, we took those and we budgeted them as expenses in the general fund. So we had these weird transfers going on. This year, I decided not to do that. Rather, we're going to collect it. It'll go into a separate fund. It won't hit the general fund. So that's why the yellow bar is so high, but the red bar is low there. We talked a little bit about sales tax and other kind of, well, this is just sales tax. You can see on the chart here kind of the steady trend line of steady increases. That's 3 to 6% throughout the years. Steady trend line increase there. You see, this great big bump here in 2024 when Panasonic was building things. The 25 projections, we're still currently projecting a little bit less, but we may wind up the end of the year. This is still a very conservative projection on 2025. but then our budget is back down here, essentially where the trend line would be. And that, I believe, is a sufficiently conservative approach to the sales tax. This is a pretty big part of our budget. You know, $3.2 million of a general fund budget. So it's pretty important not to get this wrong in the wrong kind of way. It's okay if we get it wrong low, but if we get it wrong high, we're going to be in trouble. So that's why we've always been pretty conservative with this, and we've talked about that before. This chart's kind of messy, but this plots retail sales activity in DeSoto from 22 through so far in 25. And you see these, and it also shows workers at Panasonic, which is kind of unrelated. Related, this is the reason the sales tax is so high, but these are retail sales activity. But you can see down here in 23, 24, where on a monthly basis, the retail sales activity was bouncing, it was under $10 million per year. And then the 25 and so far 26 numbers, it's up here closer to 20. It's doubling, it basically doubled. And so that's the reason we get this peak here, and that's just in the city, actual sales tax collection. So just thought I'd just throw that in there. There's a much better depiction of this increase on one of those boards back there on the wall. Whitney did it much more nicely than I could. The other discussion we had on the revenue side this year was franchise fees and how we just wanted to tweak those down just a little bit, just because of the ramp up at Panasonic, and we know they're not quite using all the power they thought they were going to. So this trend line is a very substantial part of the budget in the out years. Look at 2031, it's up over $3 million. We still fully expect that to occur, but for the first few years, we've kind of adjusted this number downward to remain conservative. This chart here is it's in the budget document. We just kind of show how here's what the franchise fees were before the facility started construction. We're expecting. 25, it's 2.2 million. Last year in our projections in 25, we showed about 1.3 million. Looks like we're probably only going to collect about 500,000 of that. So anyway, we've diminished those a bit. This is a look at the historic mill levy. I won't, belabor this, but you can see that, between 2018 and now, we've been able to reduce that mill levy. The biggest dip was last year by a third there, but still on this downward trend that we hope can continue. So general fund revenue picture looks like this, and of course, everything up to 24 is actual revenues that we collected. 25 is a projection of what we think we're going to collect this year. I think we're still being sufficiently conservative with our projections there. And then 26, this is what's in the budget. So again, another conservative approach. And we typically, and if we were in a normal situation, we might try to match these trend lines a little better, but I just, with where we're at now, I think it's very important. I know this is a little busy here, but this is just kind of a restatement of the budget enhancements that we talked about. So the total, and these are all general fund budget enhancements. We talked, there's new positions, increased money for sidewalks, DeSoto Days, increased funding for DeSoto Days, more street ceiling funding, city clerk position, grant writing and lobbyist position, additional support for the chamber, another position in the building inspection department, a position in the communications department, street signs, pavement and asset management, some other smaller stuff. Total of these budget enhancements just over $500,000, but we do have offsetting reductions in some expenses in the general fund. So the impact to general funds of just a little over it's about $417,000. So wrapping all that with the projections, the 5-year projections, and the budget for 26, this is what our 5-year projection trend line looks like. So this yellow line is where we expect to the end of the year in terms of general fund balance, just over 8.3 million. if the budget works exactly and every number is perfect for next year, that's gonna decrease to 6 million, just a little over 6 million. See, we only have 9 million in revenues and 12 million in expenditures. There's some other transfers in there as well. So, the goal always is, in mind, that this fund balance should be about 30% of our operating expenses. And so what I've done in this orange line is I've kind of plotted that. So that you can kind of take the blue line, which is the year-end fund balance, and subtract that orange and see that there's still about $800,000 in that we could consider allocating to specific resources. And this is the conversation we've had within the CIP about, how much additional. We transferred 2 million last year, another million this year. We could probably, based on these projections, transfer another 800,000 to do even more CIP or additional projects or things as we go through the year. So you've seen this before as well. Quickly through the law enforcement fund, it's just kind of a revenue in, it's expense out. There's not a lot of reason to keep 30% in the law enforcement fund because we don't have really unexpected expenditures there. But revenue is just under $1 million, expenditures just over $1 million, and this is what that trend line looks like going out through 2031. Debt service is the same way. Level mill levy for the debt service, not really a reason to keep a big reserve in there. So our revenues for 2026, 2 million, and expenditures about 2.5 million. On the water fund, we did talk about the commissioning of the new plant and the added positions there. Those positions are contingent on increased revenues from sales, largely to Panasonic. So we worked some of those projections into this analysis. The out years of this, they get a little strange because we're planning on going from selling about 1 million gallons of water a day to selling about 2.5 billion gallons of water a day once Panasonic is fully up and operational. And so, that's more than double the revenue, more than double the chemical expenses. Plus, we're operating a new water plant, which we hope is to be more efficient, right, in terms of power use and maybe chemical use. So it's a little different. So this red trend line here is the 30% fund balance. So that's what that red line is. You can see that we stay above it in 25, 26, and there's reason to believe we might increase it there in the out years. No rate increase projected for the water fund for 2026. The sewer fund, much the same. We're going to double the sewer treatment revenues, double the amount of water we have to treat. But you see the fund balance increasing steadily, but the percentage of fund balance not necessarily increasing, and that's because of that increased usage there in revenues. There is a 2.5% rate increase budgeted for 2026. Really hoping to be able to get both the water fund and the sewer fund through 26 without any adjustment. Our sewer rate, we should probably have I could have a more in-depth discussion about this. Our sewer rates are very low. Water rates are commensurate with others around, maybe even on the high side. Sewer rates are very low compared to surrounding communities of our size. They're about the same as Johnson County wastewater, but for a city of our size, they're pretty low. At any rate, the 2.5% budget or rate increase is budgeted. We'll monitor revenues and expenses throughout the year and determine sometime around the first of the year if we need to enact this or not. Yeah, that was it. That was it for the summary. So this is, I know you can't read this, but this was the budget hearing notice for the next meeting on the 18th. So we'll have a revenue neutral rate, exceeding a revenue neutral rate hearing and the budget hearing, kind of a dual purpose there. And we'll be submitting that budget to both counties by October 1st. And Mayor, that was what I had for you this evening.
Any questions for Mike on the budget presentation? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for your patience.
Item 5 is executive session. We don't have one, so Mike, anything for us under advisory reports?
No, sir. Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Patrick?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Joe? Brandon?
The only thing I have is at your seat, you have those no soliciting signs. Saw a large increase. I don't know if it's because Edgar was taking over the program this year. We got a lot more complaints about soliciting this year. And so one of the suggestions we got from the public was to offer up these stickers. So we're going to roll those out next week. You do not have to have one of those stickers. You can get your own if you want. Any no soliciting sign would qualify under our city ordinance. We're going to roll those out to the residents over the next couple weeks, just kind of listening. With that, that's about it.
All right, thank you. Council comments. Kevin, you want to start tonight?
Got nothing.
Rhonda?
I will be gone on October 2nd,
Okay.
and will not be here.
Rob?
On that note, I will be remote September 18th, and we'll have to cut off probably about 8:30, 8:45 if we have a long meeting.
Hopefully we'll get.
I was gonna say, hopefully, but I'll be over at a church in Olathe maybe, with my son's fourth son's Eagle Board of Review, which is after he turned 18, because he barely got the paperwork done less than 72 hours before his 18th birthday. The other comment I have, we've had a lot of questions and things, all of us, about the data center and things like that. And I made all the motions to approve the data center development agreement and stuff, because I do believe it's good for our community. But in listening to people and talking with people, there are some things that we haven't done right. And a lot of us ran on transparency. We've talked about transparency. And a lot of what happens is our community feels like things have been dropped on them. And when we look at the data center, how it came to us and what we did, and like I said, I back what we did, but how we did it is where I come back and go, okay, two things about it. Number one, it was mentioned by Kevin tonight, and we actually required Dave Anderson to do it the night of that meeting. And in our incentive policy, it's typical that we ask the developer to come